you ever wondering what's with the lack of work here? Well, it's because of that. In BFB 7, trying to get the Jawbreaker loser, she got held by Woody, Annie, ripped her up. And because 4 wasn't there, she couldn't be revived, so she spent the better half of 4 episodes being dead. However, that isn't to say that she didn't make any impact of anything. It did. With Stavie, of course. Straight away in the very next episode, you go ahead and cheat in the game. Now, this isn't the first time he would cheat the game, but this one was different. BFB 4 was completed by accident. I think he never made it clear. And then there was BFB 7 where you killed Balloony, but to be fair, everyone was killing each other. BFB 8 was the first time he would try to cheat in the competition. Now, of course, maybe he thought he'd get away with it because Donald didn't have the authority to suck him up. But perhaps it came from a feeling of not having much to lose. With Foldy catching her chips, or kick the bucket, or biting the duck. The person he goofed around with in BFB 1, executing someone for not being Foldy in BFB 2, goofed off again in BFB 4 with Marcus, stabbed 4 in BFB 5, risking him to the gelatin. Now that she's going for not being here to revive her, perhaps he saw this competition as kind of pointless and is just doing what he can to win the challenge to stay in this game long enough to see her again, even if it means risking being put up for elimination and being eliminated. And if that happens, oh well, at least he can probably see her when 4 revives her before he eliminates him. The man they call Stapy. When grassing, Clock grassed to the fore regarding Stapy just after she was revived. Despite his aggressive demeanor to Clock, preventing him to see his best friend, it was alas not much. What a grasser. What a grassy. What a grassy. Truly one that was driven by the concept of reuniting, he failed to see his own oversight over what he did. He just simply didn't care. But by the time Foldy came back to her old gang, she was too late. Not by days, or hours, or even minutes. Just by a few seconds. But those few seconds sent her down to a spiral that lasted years and would never probably end, I don't think. This is a sad story that was gutted by the concept of death. A good friendship that was far too gone. She can get as annoying as she wants, it wasn't like it was unfair anyway. Gone was her best friend, and it's what they once called Stapy. Her best friend is what they called Stapy. And with the time being 1 minute to midnight, this has been the end of broadcasting from Purgatory Radio 4. Closing down this broadcast for today, make sure you turn to 5861 FM on your radios to tune back at 8 AM sharp. I've been Anna Smith, bidding you sweet dreams. Nosta Ruichiva. Wasn't that beautiful? Anyways, I need to get back on Earth, so give me 1 moment. By the time you'll see the next scene, we'll be back and alive, and BFB 11 will be our agenda. So, this is the big one. The one I'm sure a lot of you probably know Foldy for. Or everyone, I don't know yet. So after finding out Irons was quote-unquote responsible for Stapy's elimination in BFB 10, she wanted one thing. Blood. Okay, she wanted Irons to be eliminated more than anything, but blood sounds cooler, so I'm going with blood. So when Flower went up the stairs in the challenge, she met face to face with Foldy, who vows to make sure Irons stopped for elimination for Stapy. Now this is the side of Foldy we haven't only vaguely seen with Lie, but for this one, where even the audience gets to see it intervene in practice. Despite being weak, Foldy would even go as far as going physical with Flower over this. Foldy, unless it's the rules, will never get physical with anyone. She never even went physical on Lie, and she never got physical in BFB 6. This is the first time, and even though there was obvious that she would lose, the fact that she still did it was a real shock to the system. But here's the thing. She's being a bit pathetic here. Whilst of course she was livid about her friend being on a sort of a team tattling before she got to see him again, she massively put her own decisive vengeance, risking her own team for elimination, which would probably result in her getting eliminated. I say as if she has any insight on her viewers watching like a moving sledgehammer to the fourth wall, but that's besides the point. Do you think it makes her a bit selfish? Very impulsive? And the answer is of course yes, but I don't think it's a bad thing per se. Foldy in BFB 11 kind of gives off a bit of a message of how selfish someone can be. If we were Foldy, would we just simply accept that our best mate is gone? Especially since we never given much of context of why they were eliminated and we never had so much of a send-off. We would like to say that we would to make ourselves look good, but would we really? But at the same time, there is an argument to be made that she has other friends to hang out with, such as Marka, and again, she's putting her team at risk of being up for elimination, putting her more negative light. That would make her come across as selfish. But then again, isn't that who she is? A bit childish. She preferred to goof around and play rock, paper, scissors over helping her team, has a feud of lie, coming her nest with 2 kids outside during break, and kinda doesn't really have any instruction on anything. Well, yet. Whether you think she's justified or not, that isn't the point I'm making this. The point I'm making is that this small scene alone created a rather interesting debate on the character of Foldy, and how she seems both the characters and the competition itself. The character change does feel fairly sudden, yes, but isn't that a character for Foldy to do something like this given how much she values Stevie and how she handles certain views like with Lie? However, that being said, there was one thing I haven't seen, and although it's not really as common as it once was, it was people blaming Foldy for matches eliminated in BFB 11 due to the scene. So Anyways, even if that wasn't the case, Foldy had very little impact on Iron's performance in reality. You're forgetting a puny build, basically only working armless and all that twaddle, so even if it isn't her, then who is? Well, it's more of a 3-way tie. There's no really set person you can specifically blame. The first one is Pi, who was the last one to compete and had a strategy to use Black Horse to launch it directly to the button to pass the flower. And then there's Dora, who basically knocked everyone off the stairs with the possible exception of Ballooning. And then there's Flower, who herself should be responsible for being, fairly crap at the challenge. One, for taking a long time to push the button before Dora could run up, and the second time she just stopped after seeing Pi stationary. Although in Flower's defense here, she did have a long way to go anyway, so what would it matter if she hadn't stopped? So in conclusion, Foldy did not cause matches elimination. In regards to the scene itself, it's very interesting that explains Foldy's loyalty to the friendship, but also paying her to guide herself a charity to the competition itself. But what has she gotten into the 7 years after this episode?
Someone, come fold me back up.
Son, we fucking.
How can I trust you to do the challenge if you can't even fold paper correctly?
Top of my string is connected to a giant.
Hey, Yellow Boy, you advertise for a massive department store, right? Got him. No. Oh, shh.
We are now in the tail end of BFB, and we'd soon be transitioning into TPOT territory. Starting with BFB 11, her attempt to get Irons eliminated caused her to go unfolded by Ruby, so why did I write this? Look, I'm not going to read it, I'm just going to show it to you. Why did I write this part? You'd begin to see that Foldy appears to be a bit more sassy than usual, insulting Bryce by practically calling him inept. But to be fair, this is the same dude that launched the Kennedy towards the propel in BFB 1, so Another thing I'd like to mention is her change in facial expressions. In earlier episodes, there'd be a greater positive expression, more smart to say. However, this one I suppose you could apply to BFB 11 as a greater concentration of bored, frustration expressions. I just did not really bother to take 11 into account because I'd be more focused on burning hatred rather than the apathy we'd see ongoing. In BFB less so, but TPOT is very crucial. There isn't really much to say in BFB 13 apart from the expressions talk I was banging on about. But there's also the isolation of Foldy's end. She doesn't talk at all in this episode, which, probably wouldn't be the first time. But in this situation is rather interesting. She doesn't help with the challenge like with the other episodes, such as BFB 3 and BFB 6, but can't just sits there for the entire episode, idly, half folded back together, never really having much of a resolution with anyone. Her expression is very much vacant and shows practically nothing going on. Or rather, the beginning of a growing sense of apathy. But funny enough, in BFB 14, she'll be folded back to normal, that's even the biggest thing. This is the first and only episode I'm aware of where she kind of instructs her team in a way, a complete 180 to a prior episode where she was relegated to a simple team member that just did what she told. But here, she concocts the idea of getting 4 fake emeralds, cheap plastic green toys that Yellowface is storing, forgery for it. This is even more bewildering to me. Not only is she taking the ground for her team, but it does it through cheating. What's with the sudden change in attitude? Originally, I thought she was mimicking the way Stapy did in BFBA, but that is kind of a bad idea thinking, given the fact that in order for this to work, you had to need to see Stapy cheats or even know about it, and knowing that either aren't true, this idea kind of falls apart. So what else? Could it be trying to make up almost during a cheat game for the team in BFB 11 for the attempted act of revenge? Maybe it's just a simple sense of clarity. Perhaps although she never had any motivation for Stapy himself, they both linked in a sense of looseness to the competition. After all, it fits with the character, and although she helped, she never really took the competition as seriously as may have wanted to. Plus, it does correlate with the growing case of indifference and its seeking with the competition, and she really seems to be afraid of risking being disqualified. You know, maybe that's another trait I haven't talked about Foldy before giving it a better eye. She seems to be very reckless and prone to risk losing the challenge. Whereas the situation of BFB 11 comes to a sense of passion and loyalty, the situation of BFB 14 is the direct opposite of nonchalant rigging of the game for a lazy buck. Maybe it's for a different, honestly less comprehensive reason I'm in this way, maybe for the socialise the team better or mix and match of the lot. What I do know is that Foldy's change from following to direction is one that is rather jarring, especially given the fact that this is their only time. Leaving BFB 14 finally and going to BFB 15, she returns back to BFB 12 and 13. However, there's some interesting things to pack in. This is not only the first episode where there's a confident establishment of Foldy and Belle, with Belle trying to make small talk, but this is also the first time that Foldy seems to be physically capable as a competitor. That's what I mean. She didn't really need to have any communication with Popple as she was going to use Belle to kill he who shall not be named, and when Blocky pushed her off, she seemed to come back and push him off. I mean, granted, yes, that was brave, and he pushed her off eventually, but improvements. Now, you may think you have some scientific explanation as to why, but I don't know, really. I'm going to be honest, I don't know. So let's move on to BFB 16 instead, the final episode of BFB before we go on to TPOT. There's not really much to talk about here other than the sense of apathy that went on being hinted at T being quite potent, even her language. I think we should solidify the fact that she tried to fail to save Stapy from the poor evil himself. What stuns me is that she moves to TPOT instead of staying in BFB. From a writing standpoint, it's understandable given that she'd be eliminated before any challenge began, but from a universe standpoint, why wouldn't she stay with 4? After all, that's where Stapy resided again. But again, I think it boils down to the socializing of half that before, as she doesn't recognize anyone going to BFB. Naturally, she goes whether all her team is going for recognizability's sake. But I also think it's more generally just giving up on the show, being more appealed by to his more charismatic tone compared to more aggressive 4, much like everyone else. And the prize? The prize is just better. We are officially into TPOT territory. You know, it's funny. We now have a host that's half the value of our host at BFB. We have like half the amount of episodes to properly look at. This segment will be the last on the analysis of the show itself, so let's kick things off with TPOT 1. And straight away, we already have something right on the intro. Take a look at Foldy in the BFB intro, or rather at the part where it shows a shot of the cast. A dopey, awkward, but well-meaning smile that seems to fit itself well. Now take a look at TPOT, a far more concerned, serious look. To emphasize, let's take a look how everyone else, though very different expressions, does have a similar vibe to either the original post in BFB like Pin or Needle, or to the general character in BFB or whatever like with Snowball or Cake. Foldy's in this bizarre third option that doesn't fit into either and instead be reflective on her TPOT character completely, without any clear overlap to her in BFB, and straight away create some foreshadowing what's to come. But we'd get to that when we get to that. But now TPOT 1. It would actually be the smaller one of the bunch, because I have a lot of words to say about TPOT 2, but it starts with Foldy misinterpreting Stapy to be Tapy. Actually, it's the other way around. And then being disappointed when found out about the hard truth from basketball. It's simple, but it does give a good inclination of Foldy sort of losing it a bit. Thinking that this thing might look, nothing like Stapy as well. Stapy. Perhaps this kind of showing her struggle trying to move on from Stapy in pursuit of talking to others and thus getting excited for the first time when someone is making sound like them is called out. Oh, it's someone trying to make us Tonic reference. You know, one, the joke where Amy confused every single, hedgehog to Sonic. It eventually grew to others as well. And it's probably the latter. Moving on, as I said about 20 minutes in ago, Belle offered Foldy to join her team. Marco wants to join and she throws it away. I've already talked about why Foldy might not say anything about Marco. Let's go where they actually see the other members. Basketball points out that she thinks the other two are good choices and wants them to put on her team. There's not really much to do with this one, other than that I want to point out the smile that she made. Very much awkward, very much exaggerated, perhaps trying to make up to making a fool out of herself earlier with basketball bowling. Yes, please ignore the fact that I mistook someone for someone completely different. But this isn't really the most interesting thing to point out. It's also later on in the episode when the challenge is happening and she once again mentions about being the lightest contestant. Like in BFB1. However, in a much more indifferent and less enthusiastic tone. This could either be trauma being shredded or the sense of apathy will grow to even worse into TPOT 2. Not to mention, despairing cover-ups make its return. This time it's
Flap.
Then there's her standing on Snowball's head when she burst out the elevator door. I kinda like it, it reminded me of Grassy and Snowball for future episodes. Not really serious analysis. There's also the kicking, which I simply just want to mention because Gracie that kicking didn't die in BFB 15. Anyways, the big one. The final call of curtains. TPOT 2. Probably the second biggest kicker to Foldy's character because he didn't really do anything. To a general audience, at least for mad scientists like me, this isn't the case. By TPOT 2, it's like she's one completely different person. She sort of spent her entire episode lounging around, which to be fair is something we've seen as early as BFB 1, but this time it's different. Rather than using that time to goof around and pursue something else, she just sat there and did nothing. And with other times where she at least would eventually lock in and help her team, this time she doesn't, and even went as far as nothing is better than doing work. This is not only flies in the face of BFB Foldy, and so much of her mental state kind of dropped off since then, but it's intensified given the fact it isn't that hard. Looking at the other challenges she participated, there was a swing around in the swing set 50 times, there float in a paper airplane with one of the most heaviest characters, avoid the twinkle, run 500 stairs, guess who's who, retrieve the emerald star all underground before X does, and get to 4 whilst massively risking burning into a pool of lava. All of these, where we can argue how well she did herself in them, are all arguably more difficult than stacking blocks, especially since there's plenty of things that she could do, like topple the blocks, which is one of the suggestions given to her by Eggy. Actually, you know what would have been cool? Whilst the Razor's topping off the strongest team on Earth blocked over and over, just gets herself up out of pure frustration of a Razor, and because, fear of Pentagons, he'd run away. I know it's a bit random, especially since the Razor's been on team with her, and only really got nervous of her once. But then again, for one, a Razor don't have brains, like, she needed pen to realize that Foldy is a pentagon. And secondly, the show just decides whether or not objects are able to breathe in space, so anything goes, I suppose. Actually, I was kind of lying when I said she didn't do anything. She did do something. Oh, she only snitched on Eggy to basketball for running off. Gosh, what a twist of irony. Someone crashed in your main, causing them to never to basically separate each other, and you crashed on someone else. Wow. Wow. So yeah, TPOT 2 Foldy. Completely different breed to anything we saw before. It's like she lost all sense of meaning, completely gave up, and by then it was practically doomed. Even beyond practically giving up on the challenge before she even started, she almost sounds far more passive-aggressive and annoyed generally. And yes, granted, all allies this episode all have this annoying expression fitted, but counterpoint, TPOT 3. This is the episode where Foldy gets eliminated because evidently this is also the episode where I stopped giving a crap about YouTube anymore. Well, until, last year, but we'll just pretend that never happened. Although there was just one line, she sounds fairly defeated, almost like wasn't even surprised. Even though, oh, I've been eliminated sounds sarcastic. But all good bittersweet moments. At least you can rest on knowing she had one last funny line. Let's show that one last time for the road.
Votes. Oh, my origami book that's called Geogami. I've been eliminated? It's been fun, guys.
And she's gone. Just an episode short before this funny teapot elimination phase. I think that's the tragedy of Foldy. She's never on time. She's either too late or too early. And it's certainly a pity that she was gone too soon. For some, a minor, but for me, also minor that I only drank about a Smirnoff vodka or the two, and mine just had the robots drink that out of Mobile One petrol. There could be something really interesting stuff you can do with the rest of the team alongside with Folding herself. Barring Bell, there was Eggy, which had a recipe, given the fact that Eggy's more stubborn and straight-minded personality can clash with Folding's awkward and losing grip on a discipline. Even just changing Foldy's role in TPOT 2 could do a lot more, like maybe Hunter interact with Marco for the first time. Well, like he could just show up mid-challenge and just goof around like they did in BFB 4. But nevertheless, it was never meant to be, I suppose. I think it's also important to mention that there's potential even now, and especially that Lai is back in the game, and hopefully not voted out by the time this video is out. I don't know if mine actually probably will be. But, yeah, no more Foldy, guys. I mean, that's not completely accurate. She made a few appearances after Teapot 3. Teapot 17 showed her room, and another episode, she actually just showed up. So, that was nice. So, bon voyage, Foldy. You certainly did a lot better than that whatever the hell happened in BFB 19. Holy hell, that